It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. It's time to wake up.
Yeah, it was a wake-up call that went on to change an entire industry. Renoster, a boutique carbon market rating agency, had applied AI and machine learning to uncover issues in the Kariba project, a major industry offsetting initiative involving many household name companies. When Renoster went public with its findings, it turned out to be just the tip of the iceberg. That was the start of the Vera scandal, which my colleagues from Die Zeit and Guardian have reported on, and that showed that phantom credits were a plague on the industry, and that paved the way for a much-needed reform. Join Rachel Ross, a forest scientist at Renoster, as she talks about the aftermath of the Vera scandal, how the industry has matured, and how technology and best practice can ensure that investor confidence in the carbon market for the future will remain. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you.
Rachel, you have a quite interesting background, which even includes working at NASA, the space agency from the US. Tell us, how does a forest scientist ended up working at NASA?
Yeah, first, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here speaking with you all today. And yeah, my journey from NASA to forest science might seem unconventional, but it's really rooted in a deep passion for conservation and for understanding how humans impact the Earth. And the tool that I use to do this is remote sensing, which involves using sensors from satellite imagery to measure changes on Earth. And it's a very powerful tool to measure land use change, such as deforestation or urbanization or agricultural change. And while I was not measuring forest changes at NASA, I was measuring agricultural changes. So I led a team there to develop a software tool for the California Air Resources Board, which is a government agency in California. And this tool allowed CARB to estimate how much carbon is being lost every year due to the development of orchards and vineyards across California. So it was a really exciting project at the intersection of technology and climate, and empowered California Air Resources Board to better understand how California was going to meet its net zero goals.
So you now work at Renoster, which is quite a subsequent career path after what you've told us already. What is Renoster actually, and what do you do there?
Yeah, so Renoster is a carbon credit rating agency, and we specialize in rating forestry projects. So these could be tree planting projects, for example, or other types of projects that manage forests in more sustainable ways. And we're a team of remote sensing scientists and forest scientists using our expertise and satellite imagery and machine learning and AI to validate the claims of carbon projects, mostly in the voluntary carbon market, or the VCM. So for those of you who are new to the VCM, a kind of typical example of how a transaction might work is for a corporate, say Microsoft, for example, who has its net zero goals and is trying to meet those goals, and purchases offsets from, say, a project in Brazil, where a project developer is planting trees and measuring how much carbon is being sequestered through those trees, and that in turn directly relates to the carbon credits that Microsoft buys to use towards its net zero claims. So that's kind of a typical example of how the market works. But the voluntary carbon market is not regulated, and there is not really standardization. And so there's a real lack of trust and transparency. And so our goal at Renoster is to empower buyers in the market to make educated purchasing decisions, to really understand the kind of climate impact of the credits that they're purchasing, so that they don't contribute to greenwashing.
Renoster was founded in 2020, and by that time already a lot of companies began offsetting their carbon emissions in order to sell carbon neutral products. What did you actually made you suspicious that these projects might not generate the environmental return they were promising?
Yeah, so it was definitely common knowledge in the industry that a lot of projects were basically developing phantom credits or fake credits that were not contributing to real climate impact. So working in the industry, it was just kind of something that everyone knew, is there was like a ton of bad credits floating around. And so yeah, it was something that people knew about, but hadn't really been exposed to the public yet.
And you had now the Vera scandal, which actually made the company famous, which made the problem famous. And how can you tell us in a technical way, how did you check these values that were provided from the Kyriba project?
Yeah, so the Vera scandal was definitely a watershed moment for carbon markets. The Guardian and the New Yorker and other major news agencies came out with publishing articles detailing exactly the kind of very high level of inaccuracies and false claims and outright fraud in the industry. And Renoster played an important role largely in our analysis of the Kyriba project, which is one of the largest and oldest projects in Africa. And we ran some statistical analyses on the project, showing that the project had a very largely inflated baseline. So the project was claiming that there would be nearly 100% deforestation in the land where the project was taking place without the activities of the project. And our estimates were that the historical deforestation rate in the area was around 0.06%. So the project had a hugely inflated baseline, and we estimated that about 30 times, the project was getting about 30 times more credits than it should have been receiving. So we made a LinkedIn post about this, and it garnered a lot of attention, in part because the CEO of South Pole, who was the project developer for Kyriba, responded that we were spreading fake news, and this got a lot of attention. And then we provided some statistics for reports and also did a peer review of the Guardian article. And yet typically, AI and machine learning is very central to our approach. We analyze a ton of satellite imagery to measure carbon fluxes, but we actually didn't have to use our technology stack to uncover issues in the Kyriba project because it was so blatantly overinflated. So we really just needed to use some basic statistical analyses on the project.
What was the aftermath? Were there any consequences for the companies that were involved, for the companies that had offsetted their carbon emissions via this project?
Yeah, definitely there was a lot of kind of reputational shame for the companies that had invested in those credits and were using those credits for their net zero claims. South Pole eventually walked away from the project, and they were able to do this contractually because there was a shell company that was the actual owner of the project. But it was a move that was really shameful for the industry because South Pole walked away from their responsibility to protect the forest for 30 years and their responsibility to pay communities on the ground from carbon revenue. And then Vera issued a statement it's currently ongoing investigation into the allocation of fraud in the project.
Oh, but actually, that doesn't sound like an ideal outcome if the forest is not taken care for anymore.
Yeah, no, it definitely was not an ideal outcome, but led to a lot of really important conversations in the market and more kind of robust methodologies moving forward.
Let's talk about how technologies like AI and machine learning will change that type of verification generally. Are we walking into an age of transparency where we can check everything with the data that is available, or do we still have a way to go?
Yeah, so AI definitely plays a really important role. It allows experts like us at Renoster. I'm definitely not an expert, but I've had the opportunity to learn from colleagues who are experts in AI. But it allows us to analyze large amounts of historical satellite imagery. And the AI that we use is image recognition. And yeah, it allows us to basically recognize forest change and to be able to estimate carbon fluxes. And so, yeah, it's a very powerful tool that allows us to bring about transparency in the market, similar as we did with the Kyriba project. But in terms of trust, there's still some way to go. So large language models such as ChatGPT right now do not do a great job of validating carbon projects. So ChatGPT really struggles to look through the hundreds of pages of documentation and to be able to discern fact from projects' claims that they're doing everything wonderfully. And so, currently we're really not able to use large language models, even though at the company we kind of embrace this culture of AI. But something that Renoster is really excited about because we use remote sensing technology coupled with AI, and there are some new satellite products. Biomass is one of them that will be launched soon, and it's going to allow us to directly measure carbon stock because currently we use a lot of proxies to do this. So with new satellite technology that's coming into orbit soon, coupled with AI, we will be able to bring about a lot more trust and transparency in the market.
Yeah, being able to do that is one thing, but you also have to find clients who are interested in verifying their own offsetting projects.
Yes.
Do you experience a rise in interest since the Vera scandal?
Yeah, definitely. So right after the Vera scandal, purchasing in the carbon market and purchasing of ratings was definitely at an all-time low. It really eroded any trust and confidence in the market. But slowly, after a lot of really important conversations and changes that came about, there is a lot more activity in the market today, and corporates and investors are recognizing that they really need that independent third-party due diligence that Renoster provides for projects.
Is it rather the corporates or is it rather the investors who are interested in this
I would say it's really both pretty equally. There's a change in the market where investors are investing earlier in the project timeline because a lot of existing projects today don't have the highest quality credits, and there's not a lot of trust with the credits that are existing. So they're moving earlier in the project timeline, investing in projects earlier on, and getting ratings and reviews of projects very early on in the duration of the project so that changes can be made to increase the quality of projects.
So did that really happen since the scandal? Has the quality of these kind of offset projects increased since then, and how do you measure that?
Yeah, so looking at projects on a daily basis, I've definitely seen a lot of high quality projects that I've been reviewing lately. And yeah, it's very encouraging to see in projects like the TIS project, for example, and other projects that are doing a much better job in terms of transparency, publicly disclosing their budgets, and so that we're able to trace how revenue goes from carbon credit sales to communities that often own the land where these projects take place, and projects that are using third-party and independent maps to estimate deforestation instead of coming up with their own maps. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of higher levels of quality in the market today, and we're seeing a lot more projects really doing the right thing and being more transparent about what they are doing.
I hope I don't sound too European when I say your business model is quite based on the fact that there's a lack of regulation in terms of voluntary offsetting projects. Would you sign that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. There is very much a lack of regulation in the market, a lack of standardization, and so this leads to kind of a market where buyers are just not very sure of what they're buying. There's kind of no kind of guarantee of trust and of methods and standardization. So yeah, again, this really kind of necessitates third-party independent rating agencies like Renoster to do very deep dives into the due diligence of projects and ensure that buyers are actually buying what they think they're buying.
Given the multinational nature of many carbon offsetting projects, do you think it's realistic even to expect some sort of regulation, or will we always have to rely on third-party verificators?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I definitely hope that there will be a lot more regulation in the future. The U.S. has a compliance market in California, and I would love to see more compliance and more regulatory oversight. But I do think because of the international nature of the carbon markets, I do think that, third-party independent due diligence is really always going to be necessary in terms of, really analyzing what's going on the ground.
Rachel, as a journalist, I really value your work, and I hope that when the next time you find a scandal, you give a knock to Handelsblat first. Thank you very much for the very inspiring talk.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
It's time to wake up.